Hello, hello, champions. It's Isabella here in the studio, greeting you and wanted to check in to see how all you're doing. We are live. Surely I will have additional guests joining me in the studio. But in the meantime, I would love to open conversation about the hot topic that prompted so many questions, not only last time, but also through conversations that I had since then with some of you. So we're going to be tackling powerful questions around how we're driving forces of what are the driving forces behind the resilience and what that looks like, and how we tap into our own resilience and our own strength, and how do we make an impact, and how that actually makes possible everything else that we're trying to do. And we're seeing a lot of challenges, don't we, during this current time. And some of these challenges really are affecting many, many people because sometimes we underestimate how resilient we are. We think that we're more resilient than we think, and we take on more, and then we burn out and create a lot of emotional issues and putting ourselves on a roller coaster ride, or we underestimate how resilient we are, and we really never tiptoed in any stretch opportunity to really see what that looks like. Sometimes we play too safe, don't we? So what I wanted to really focus on today is the 6 major domains of the resilience and why they're so important to tackle today, because I see this happening also with the teams, and I see this happening in organizations. So of course we want to tackle that from that level, right? We are also seeing issues around vision. What is that vision? What is that purpose, goal, or congruences and capacities that will drive that around the vision, so that we can step in and be more exercising our resilience and being more resilient, right? How we are also looking under our composure, how we are showing up individually, how do we carry ourselves, what that looks like in the real world. And one of the key things that I'm seeing more than ever needed is the regulation of emotions. It's not just emotional capacity and emotional intelligence. We also have very virtual world, a world when we text, when we actually speak on the other line, but we don't see other person, right? And with texts and phone calls, things can really get skewed versus when we have opportunity to see each other, like you have a chance to see me now. So how do we regulate the tone or message when it's coming flat on the other side, either through email or the text, right? And then how do we also regulate that when it comes from phone or different means of communication? And then how we have those interpretation biases, how we have these triggers that keep coming in, how they keep us either calm and under control, or how to make us to really react. And of course, every time someone reacts, usually what that means is that they are dealing with something that doesn't have nothing to do with us, right? But they have certain triggers. And why this is so important to really understand what those triggers are and how can we get better, and who trigger us for what purposes, or what triggers over and over again, so we can fix it. And some of those issues keep coming, and the reason why I'm bringing them up again is thank you, Sofu, for being here, and also great to have you with us. Great to have a banker, writer, and poet. Absolutely awesome. And Patricio, I'm so glad you're here. Join me from Croatia, fellow Croatian. Hey, how are you doing? Kako si? You have to write something and make some comments, okay? And ask some really good questions. But as we're really putting all this together, and why I wanted to also reflect on this is, so now when we have the vision, where we're headed, what we're trying to do, and that it's clear, it's congruent, and fits with our goals, then we have that composure that I was just mentioning about regulating our emotions, our biases, and then how we stay calm and controlled. How sometimes also we get perceived intense or dramatic or loud or yelling or carrying, and how sometimes we also need to really understand how others sees us, because experience what they have, we don't have no control, but what experience we have a control over it, right? So opportunity also to really have a two-way street, two-way dialogue, and then adjust accordingly, because that really brings the very important next point, which is reasoning. If you guys really wanted to master resilience, and I know it's been very challenging and hard, I can tell you a little bit how I've mastered some of parts of the resilience. It's a work in progress, right? But more than anything right now, resilience is key. The most resilient species, as Darwin said, it's not going to be only surviving, but they're going to be thriving, right? And we need to figure out how to thrive in times of stress, times of pressure, times of a lot of shortcomings, quick information, tons of responsibility. And where there comes this reasoning element, which is, I also think, very crucial after that composure, how we physically come in our body, in our sound, in our voice, in our posture, verbally, non-verbally. But now reasoning. Reasoning is about problem solving, how capable we are to problem solve, how resourceful we are, and then also how we can anticipate and plan. So sometimes something can happen very dramatic. And depending on which line of work you are, sometimes it's actually all the time or very often for some of us, right? Depending on what we do on consulting, strategizing, advising, or what type of clientele we have. And some people are constantly in turmoil. So understanding what to anticipate when things go south, when people lash out, or when people drop off, or whatever it might be, like what we can do now to solve and do the damage control. What is the contingency plan? So that is the huge one, right? So we have to really understand that. But the number 4 of the 6 domains that I want to tackle before my guest arrives, which is part of today's conversation, and we're going to pivot and see how that resilience played out and strength into their world, specifically as they're facing so many challenges today. Now we have also health aspects. Yesterday, someone did not have a good night of sleep from the night before and was fatigued and exhausted, and perceived with right or wrong, and true often, situation of some magnitude of bringing other people too close in their space, and then reacts. A reaction and fusion can happen very, very quickly. Because when we don't have enough of sleep, we don't eat properly, and when we do not exercise, we do not take care of ourselves, it's really, really challenging to be on top of our game, isn't it? So why I wanted to also bring that up, it's all the stuff that we already know, right? And I'm so glad that Lydia, you're here with us, that you can join and say hello and see your beautiful smiling face. And Sanakra, thank you so much for being here with us. Much appreciated. And now we're going to have our guest that is already here joining us, Artur. And I want to just tackle one more thing before we bring Artur here, is of while we're tackling this resilience to segue into, which is this tenacity and obviously element of collaboration. Tenacity where we have resistance, realistic optimism, and we can quickly bounce back no matter what life throws at us. But also when we build amazing collaboration, and a collaboration to support networks, that we have also very amazing social context, know how to interact, and also manage perceptions and anticipations, right? How, like, what we anticipate is going to happen and what the perceptions are. With that in mind, we're deep diving in and welcoming Artur here from ukrainenow.org, that also is demonstrating how is everything being possible in his world, despite so many challenges, to be that driving force behind strength and resilience. And then knowing when to take a break, when to pause, when step away, but also knowing how that drives something more impactful. And he is the master impactful on how he creates effective collaborations with his leadership. So without further ado, let's hear from Artur. Artur, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey guys, I wish I was a master of taking a break. Unfortunately, that seems to be harder than usual. But thanks for having me. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. Obviously, this LinkedIn Live is a three-pronged approach, and we really want to hear from you. Despite of everything you're dealing with, do you mind sharing a little bit about your background? Because people don't understand how, in a split second, all of the world can change. Even though you're in LA and everything looks great and dandy there, but in the reality, we're seeing so many different things happening. So please.
Sure. So I'm a serial tech entrepreneur, originally from Ukraine, from Vinnytsia, but moved to Los Angeles and used to have a startup incubator, technology startup incubator. And my core responsibility was validating new business ideas, disrupting the old ones, and pushing out software into the market and helping companies fundraise and get to the next stage. And for the last 8 years, I've built more than 70 startups. Most of them failed. Obviously, most startups failed. That's the rules of the game. But through these years of experience, I've harnessed the skill set of problem solving and working in extreme uncertainty, which proves to be very, very helpful in uncertain times, such as now, where we have an actual full scale war happening in Ukraine. So that's who I am. And currently, we run ukrainenow.org, which is a nonprofit that I started on the first night of the invasion. Originally, I created the nonprofit 501(c)(3) entity in 2020 with the idea of creating a startup incubator for social impact initiatives. And I couldn't even imagine being able and having to use that whole infrastructure for my own country, for my own family, for friends, for everyone in Ukraine. But we started evacuating people since the first week of the war. We were extremely overwhelmed. We had extreme uncertainty about developing situation and the dangers on the ground, but we still persevered. And I'm fortunate to have so many volunteers across the world. We're truly global initiative where we have people from all countries. I think like 18 time zones or so, and everyone is obviously bringing their own skill sets. But the most important one is obviously just being able to work in extreme uncertainty because the situation is just so dynamic.
Such a powerful share, and not only that you're dealing with a lot of uncertainty, right? And then how do you with ambiguity, and how do you pivot and still keep calm and collected, because it's also high risk job that you're doing. So it's rescuing people from most danger zones and saving people's lives, and at the same time also working and coordinating things and executing, even though you're working remotely, and moving all the chess players that are located around the borders or within the country. It's such a huge shift. But obviously, you figured out how to make an impact in an effective, collaborative way. So, do you mind sharing a little bit about that? I mean, you corralled over 2,500 volunteers, and you are now also working very closely with the Ministry of Social Policy of Ukraine. I mean, you have so many things that you put in place in such a short period of time.
Yeah, it's nothing but a miracle to observe so many different parties, so many different professionals, people from different backgrounds being able to collaborate. And it's truly a beautiful vision that I first observed in 2020 during the COVID crisis. In late March, when the COVID hit and the quarantine happened in US, I basically, the world stopped and I had an opportunity to pause and really rethink what I wanted to do with my life. I always wanted to build technology for social good, and I responded to the call to action from White House Technology Office to help medical researchers analyze scientific literature about COVID and other viruses. And that just scaled very quickly from 10 data scientists to 1,500 across the world. And it was such a rapid scaling. It took just 3 weeks to grow from 10 to 1,500. but it allowed us to understand that it's A, possible, B, you have to build tools and infrastructure to manage that kind of workflow. Because on one side, everyone is a volunteer. You can't expect much, but you can expect something. You have to understand what people bring to the table and at the same time understand their availability. So all of these pieces, we started basically crunching on the systems and processes to enable more cohesive collaboration. And what it allowed us is build mental models and frameworks and some technology that we've effectively reused when the war started in Ukraine. So we were basically taking the recipes off the shelves, and a lot of people from previous experience, the organization that I started in 2020 called coronawhy.org, they joined in and they started reusing the same templates, the same mental models, and it just picked up.
Mm, that's amazing. And again, how great it is when you seek for opportunity and when you wanted to contribute and give, and then all of a sudden everything kind of starts creating a domino effect. So everybody watching and listening, this is the how things get done and how amazing work right now Ukrainian now.org created. So do you mind sharing some of the highlights of some of the stories that you were extremely proud of, but were also very challenging to accomplish?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the first stories that I was both, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, and physically challenged was the evacuation, where Red Cross volunteers, during I think the first months of the war, they asked us to evacuate kids with cancer, sick kids that had to
Uh,
travel from all the way eastern Ukraine to Germany, to German hospital that they secured for them. And it was a crazy, crazy experience and a journey, with the last leg of it being from Lviv to Poland, and that was such an intense collaboration of so many different parties, of people just happened to be in the right place at the right time, and just an exhausting experience. I'm super proud of that. That mission took more than a week to execute, and we rushed them from Poland to Germany once they were effectively out of Ukraine, and I'm super, super proud of that. Obviously, we helped many more people after that, but that was such a intense experience that I will never ever forget.
Hmm. I can understand that. And then just the seeing the vulnerable, specifically children, that their life depends on the medication and right treatment, and they have to already, they're sick, deal with the war and aftermath of the war. It's just heart wrenching. But the beauty is these powerful stories that make a difference, right? So since then, you rescued so many women and children and elderly. But what I love your philosophy and how you run organization. I mean, obviously you're working on creating sustainable model and also opportunity to continue to do things on the larger scale, and that's where partnerships and strategic support comes from large organizations. But how did you first of all corral all the people just to follow you? I mean, that is just a great example of your phenomenal leadership.
I think there are a number of factors that contribute to that. People gravitate towards structure, and especially people that feel hopeless or helpless, they want that feeling of being in control of something. And the structure, it really helps create that feeling. So whenever we launched our form for evacuations, it was the second day of war, and it got viral. We got 15,000 evacuation requests in 24 hours, mostly because there was no such structure at that moment. Everyone was just like posting in Facebook groups and elsewhere, but there was no structured website form that asked for very detailed specifics, where to, how many people, and other things. And that's just some of the examples of how you bring clarity and responsibility, and it just brings that collaboration to the whole next level. Because when you get a flow of volunteers, you have to understand their skill sets. You have to understand how to build on their strength, not weaknesses. And even though in such an environment, some extremely skilled professionals may do data entry work or some janitorial type of work, it's fulfilling work, and having structure to enable that fulfilling work, I think, is a key. And obviously facilitation, nothing happens without facilitation, and combination of both motivation of people doing it. Obviously motivation is extremely high, but also the ability to be able to take on the task, however small or big it is, and drive it home.
Yes, and driving home, it's a hard thing to do, specifically when you're running in plethora obstacles and on unexpected issues and challenges. But we always adjust, right? And we figured out the best path forward. So with everything that is going on, also you basically, in terms of your organization, for every penny that you receive, you spend right back directly into rescue and delivering on some of the goods. And Sinsecure had some amazing things done in such a short period of time that even our large organizations that have been around for decades could be a little bit envy here, can they?
Of course, and it's fascinating when we speak to people that work in such large organizations. They're sometimes surprised how much we've achieved with so little, because we're not a multi-million-dollar fund or charity, or we haven't existed for a decade. Yet we have the flexibility, we have the speed, and we have the technology expertise that allows us to build things way faster than any of these organizations could. Obviously, we'll learn from them. We take their advice and expertise and whatever they can share with us, which is most frequently not resources. I mean, 99% of scenarios, our interactions with big organizations is just advice, which is helpful. And we totally understand the rules of the game currently in the current landscape. But yeah, I mean, I would say as organizations are jealous in a good way. I would say people that work in organizations are actually empowered when they see our results.
That's fantastic, because it's a very hard sometimes to get those measurable results. And sometimes we feel like, do we make even difference? Do we see even any traction? And sometimes because it's not always everything tangible, right? But then when you start seeing domino effect and consistency after that, it shows. And like delivering over $2.5 million worth of goods, that has to be a lot of goods being delivered and disseminated to the most endangered area of the country. And also has to be a lot of coordination and team building and resilience and of overcoming challenges and obstacles, as we were talking about, because that's where everything is possible, right? Strength and resilience.
Yeah, and the levels of collaboration. There's so many things that I haven't even seen or touched, yet they work perfectly in a harmony. And the key to that is just giving people opportunity to lead. We live in such a you know unempowered society, I would say, where people are mostly afraid to lead because they're afraid of mistakes. And in such a dangerous environment such as war, mistakes are even more dangerous. Yet if you empower people to lead and tell them to do something they believe is right until someone tells them otherwise, that's the most frequent phrase that I've used in 2020, keep using in 2022, and will probably keep using for the entirety of my career of social impact.
Let people lead, is that the phrase?
Yeah, unless someone tells you that you're doing something wrong.
Wow, that's fantastic. And I really feel like that's a beautiful way to unleash not only future generations of leader, leaders, but also give the empowerment that people are so desperately looking for, to feel empowered, that they are willing to test and have some trials and errors in order to figure it out, but the opportunity also to learn and grow and sharpen their, so as they say, sharpen their skill sets. With that in mind, obviously, organization like yours depends so heavily of support of others. So with that in mind, do you want to share a little bit about what supports you're seeking, looking for right now, what is being helpful in the past, and what our listeners, viewers, and people that will be seeing this even after we're done with the live, that we're going to disseminate directly to their inbox, what you're looking for?
Yeah, and we're fully funded by volunteers and just regular people like me and you that go on our website, click donate, and support us with however little they can. People obviously can donate with their time and passion and energy, but dollars always help because that's how we fund our evacuation trips. Using the same buses that we evacuated people to fill them with supplies and send those supplies back to Ukraine. We use that money to run our technology infrastructure. We use it for many, many things that are involved with all these processes and the infrastructure to support volunteers and organizations. We fund other smaller organizations that have no skill sets in marketing and fundraising. We're able to basically provide that arm, that helping arm to people that are able to do great work, just don't have resources to enable that. So what are we looking for right now? In total, we raised about $300,000, which is nothing compared to, bigger organizations out there. Yet we accomplished a lot. And what we're trying to do right now is actually move from one-time donations to recurring one, because that helps us build some predictability in our financial infrastructure and basically plan ahead versus react to the absence or presence of money.
That's an excellent point. And having recurrent monthly subscription of donating, even if it's a smaller incremental amounts, but that they're there. But also what we're seeing here, it's opportunity for larger corporations that are watching, listening, and also caring about what is happening right now, not only as a result of what's happening in Ukraine, but also what's happening in the US and other parts of the world as a result of the war, right? So how do we show up? How can we also set up and make magic happen? And one of the key thing is obviously taking that massive action. So we have here Sofu, Patricia, Lydia, Sonaka, and Heather. Feel free to ask any questions that you may have. But we also have something happening very soon where we can really bring globe and everybody together. And one of the key things what we're seeing is who? Not only people in LA, but around the world, right? We're having big event happening, guys, and that's why I wanted to make sure we are live streaming. We're going to be setting up opportunity for people to also participate, but more than anything, to really be able to donate. Because when we donate for something that we care, when we also show our heart and willingness to be the players with everybody else, however small it is, for knowing that not only this every penny goes where they needed the most, but it's also going to support so many. We have a great opportunity. And guess what? I wanted to share this link for you guys so you can also check it out, share with your friends and colleagues, and also opportunity for anybody that's listening, watching, wants to see us in LA to do that. So tell us a little bit about Ukrainian culture and why people should be also checking these out, because we're focusing on a two-pronged approach to really show what Ukrainian culture is all about, but also showing what is obviously opportunity to fundraise and support, and hearing and seeing some of those success stories.
Yeah, and when we're talking about Ukrainian culture, we're talking about very old culture, the culture that existed before Russia was even formed. The ages of the Kievan Rus, where Kiev was the capital of it, it stems from the Slavic tribes and the rich culture that was nourished and developed through centuries. And unfortunately, through the recent centuries, it's been punished and destroyed, and all the forces were trying to diminish it. But, I was fortunate to be born when the Soviet Union collapsed and to see the reincarnation of that culture, the ways it can flourish really enabled me to even have this conversation, to have this passion, to enable further protection of people of Ukraine, the culture, and the cultural significance of it in Europe. As people don't really pay attention to the size of Ukraine, but it's huge. It's one of the big countries in Europe, and you can imagine that a country that is mostly populated with very small areas being unpopulated has different culture, different areas of it, and different ways you can interact with that culture. You can listen to the music. You can definitely check out even pop artists that are getting significant boost right now for all the wrong reasons, obviously. And I wish there was more attention to that before the war. But there are also good things happening, which is it's suddenly boosted and highlighted for everyone to explore. It's Ukrainian food that is most often gets diminished by the marketing and the fact that it's way easier to market Russian restaurant versus Ukrainian one, mostly because not many people know that borscht is actually a Ukrainian dish, but it was overtaken and stolen by Russian culture as many other things that they've stolen from us. And you can't really find that many Ukrainian restaurants. At least you haven't been able to before. I really, really hope that's going to change nowadays, because people are finally recognizing the power of the brand that Ukraine has. And the fact that there was a joke that Ukraine exports bravery as a product into the world. And I think that recognition of the cultural significance in the world is only going to grow. So I'm super happy to invite everyone to our event on July 10th at Ukrainian Cultural Center in Los Angeles, and I'm sure it will be a very unique experience for people that are not familiar with Ukrainian culture.
That's fantastic. And what I love also what Heather was mentioning here, that she also likes the music and some artists that she's mentioning here. I don't know how even Oleg Vincik and Irina Fensin. I don't know if I pronounced correct. I'm sure you're familiar with some of these singers. But the beauty is, again, everyone culture is very important, and preserving those cultures is essential, right? And specifically during the time when so much is threatening existence of those cultures. And with everybody watching and again and listening, this is a huge opportunity to pay attention and really think about it. What can we do on a single individual level, but also what can we do as a team contributors to make things happen and support one another? And how do we now show up, and how do we do something? Because we're seeing, actually, I saw the great video and blog by Sir Richard Branson, who went to visit actually the president of Ukraine, and from the business standpoint, but also to offer support and worry about entrepreneurship and how everything is moving or not moving during the war, and then what he can possibly do to support and just shed some light. And what we're doing here also is definitely not only shedding some light, but also giving opportunity for people to take action, right?
Absolutely. And it's fascinating to see so many leaders of today and tomorrow showing up in Ukraine, from Ben Stiller, a famous actor, to Branson, to leaders of European countries, because they recognize that strong power that is basically streaming from Ukraine, and they're also they gravitate to it because it's hard not to.
Mm. And it's so interesting too, because yes, and it's not about just a smaller country and underdog who is going to be overtaken, is going to win over the large empire or not. It's not a game; it's people's lives. But the fact that you guys have so much strength and resiliency, and how much you're showing up and consistently continue to do the work, it just shows it's not that is abnormal and unhuman. It is just that people really prioritize things differently. And I love when you mentioned the structure, and I love how you positioned for this segment of it, how it's important for organizations in order to continue to thrive, to have some of that in place and opportunity for others to participate. So you have a donation and you also have a volunteer opportunities. I know you do many volunteer opportunities through organization, and that's how you continue to have people all over the world to help, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And as we're seeing support for Ukraine, slowing down, that's a effect, and the just the realization of how media works, because more and more we hear about other things happening in the world. There are enough of crazy things happening everywhere, so every country gets a share of those, including U.S. with all the craziness with abortion laws, with shootings, with immigration. So there's less and less about Ukraine. So basically, we're in a constant need of fresh volunteers, people that are not burnt out yet, because trust me, a lot of volunteers that joined in late February and March are so burnt out, they're exhausted, and they can't continue doing what they were doing. But uh, there's a lot of energy that people have conserved, I would say, just sitting in front of the TV and just crying, because it's hard to realize what's happening in the world and do nothing. And we're here to support and create an environment for these people to unleash that energy in a good way versus the anger. And yeah, so many opportunities, including the ones in Los Angeles, because we definitely need more volunteers to help on the ground with running the event.
That's fantastic. So anybody who wants to ping me directly, wants to jump in and support, but also anyone that wants to meet us and bring your community and other friends and colleagues, this is a really fantastic and great opportunity to do so. But we also
And
wanted to just point out, go ahead.
and maybe because we have one of the job postings or vacancies for volunteers in our marketing and media team, and this is specifically for blog writers or storytellers to create compassionate stories from our organization's daily life in form of short and long posts for website and social media, stories about refugees, humanitarian aid, and the life of volunteers. So if anyone wants to apply for one of those, just go to our website, click join as volunteer, and send your application.
That's fantastic. And anybody also interested not only volunteering on long term to support with the aid anywhere across the US, but also around the globe and definitely in Europe with the direct rescue mission. For anybody who feel like they have capacity to do that, but also if you just wanted to show up and help and support the event and coordinate things with me, we'll really look forward to have that opportunity, because we have less than 10 days or about 10 days before event is going to happen, and we want to make sure everything is happening in such a great, flawless way. So everybody's help and support will be more than welcome. Any other comments, Joe? I'm sorry, any other comments, Artur, that you wanted to share before we close and wrap up this live? Unfortunately, Joe was not able to join us today, but we're super glad that our guest was able to be here with today's Leadership Roundtable, and we have a chance to talk about a little bit again what it takes to be strong and resilient, how that really makes it foundation for everything, what it takes to build super effective organization with tremendous collaboration, even though if you knew, and then what means to really lay out that framework. And then also how this now comes all together with a big, huge event that is happening.
No, don't have any other comments other than thank you for the endless support that the world is giving Ukraine. And yeah, see you soon, whether it's in our Ukraine Now group chats or on our event. Yeah, super excited.
Fantastic. So again, we want to post these links, and I will have more stuff coming after we're done with this live. Thank you everyone for participating, and I know that a lot of you will be looking, checking, and commenting, and I cannot wait to hear your comments and conversation moving forward. And I also wanted to post this little here visual so you guys can also share with others. So thank you once again for everyone being here, and we wish you a fantastic rest of the day, and we cannot wait to shake your hands and give you a hug in LA.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.